All right, today, guys, I'm here with Tomoy, and real quick, To, how old are you?
95,
What year were you born?
1927.
So today is Monday. Forget what is it? The
25th.
25th. Uncle To is still sharp. And just to give you a quick background, I don't really know To that well. I've had the honor of getting to know him a lot better since my grandparents moved here in 2000. I think maybe 4 or 5. And so honestly, Uncle To's lived a really long life, and I've only known him really close for about 10 to 15 years. So today, um, I thought we better get down, record his life because he's not getting any younger,
Right, exactly.
and I'm sure he has a lot to share. So, um, with that being said, Uncle To, I thought maybe we could just talk about a little bit about your life when you were born, how you came here, and then also your legacy when it comes to maybe your work and your time at CCC and anything else you want to talk about.
Hmm. Okay, well, I said I was born in 1927 in Taishan, China, and that was before the Japanese invaded China in 1937. And that's when my father, who was already here in the States, he owned a restaurant in Washington, D.C., and he brought me and my mother from China to escape the war uh, in China. The Japanese had just started bombing Canton, that's in the south part of China where we were living. So we got out from Canton in 1937, the summer of 1937, just before the Japanese started bombing heavily the city. In fact, just before we left, one of my cousins who also lived in Canton was killed in one of the air raids. So my mother and I escaped China just in time.
What, were your brother with you?
No, no, my brother was already here. He's older than me.
How did he get to America? Did he leave? Did he leave earlier before y'all?
Oh yeah, well the Chinese custom in the old days. The father would go with to America to work, and he has to save about 10 years working, save enough money for 10 years before he could afford to go back to China to see his family.
When you came over, is that legally? Or did you
Oh yeah,
legally come over?
oh yeah.
Does it cost a lot of money to bring someone over, or how does that work?
Well, that's complicated. That's
Yeah.
another story.
Uh huh.
But my father, anyway, had friends here, and he was able to
Hmm.
sponsor me and my mother to come in 1937.
So when you came here, just because I know it's different now,
Yeah,
am I correct? How did it work for your education? Did you have wasn't there how old were you when you came to America?
9 years
So
old.
was there a assessment test or how did that work when they determined?
Well, back in the old days in D.C., we had a Americanization school that were specially set up for foreign students, not only from China but also from Europe. So we had all mixture of races and backgrounds
Hmm.
going to school at the Americanization School, located downtown on 10th and 8th Street, Northwest. And usually after a year or two, you learn enough English to get assigned to a regular public school. And I had the fortune of making a fairly good grade, and I was assigned to a ninth grade in high school.
So that's what I want to ask. So you were 11 years old and you were placed in ninth grade, which is like 14 and 15.
Right. I was 4 years ahead of my class.
Now, just to rewind, um, is that
And,
based on your
well,
English and math, or just
yeah,
both, or what?
mostly English because that's where we had to start from bottom. And we picked up a little math on the way up.
So you didn't have school? Did you have a lot of school in China?
I had about 2 years.
I'm just curious. How did you become such a good student with so little
My
education.
genes, I guess. I was
Your
born
gene-
that way. I couldn't help it.
You couldn't. So you were good at. So you were just really quick at languages,
Picking up, yeah. I had a pretty good ear, I guess, and I could pick up.
and your math was that also exceptional back then?
Well, I learned as I went along.
Okay, because maybe maybe another thought. Maybe it's genetics because you said your brother was a lawyer,
Yeah,
and that's pretty rare, right,
right.
for a Chinese person.
See, like I said, he was about 12 years older
Uh-huh.
than me.
Uh-huh.
And he was already here in the States. He had gone to high school and college. He graduated from the National Law School. And that later became part of George Washington
Mm.
University.
So you came to America. You worked really hard. You got into high school. What high school was that?
Central High School downtown.
Okay, tell me about that. I'm sure this is very strange. You came to America. You're tiny. You're already small because you're Chinese, and then you go to high school surrounded by grown-ups, and you look.
Well, let me take it back.
Yeah.
I was assigned to ninth grade.
Uh-huh. That's
You
junior
could-
high.
Yeah, you could be either seventh grade
Uh-huh.
or ninth grade. And my qualification was I could go to ninth grade.
Yeah.
So I actually started my ninth grade in junior high school.
Uh-huh.
It's Jefferson Junior High School.
Yeah.
Because that's where I live. You know, I live in downtown.
There, LaFont Plaza, waterfront.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Near the southwest. And from there, after there 1 year, ninth grade, I went into senior high school and Central High School, where I finished my senior high school
Did you
years.
feel scared?
No?
I mean, you're tiny, and also, I
Oh,
guess
yeah, everybody was a foot or more taller than I am.
And this, by the way, back then it was segregated, so it was only white people, right?
No? Oh, yes. Luckily, in D.C.,
Mm-hmm.
the Chinese were assigned to white schools.
Okay.
Now, someplace, in the state, Virginia or Mississippi, the Chinese were assigned to black schools. So
So your education probably was a little benefited from going to a white school.
Right. I'm sure of that.
Did you feel so you didn't get picked on when you were in high school?
Well,
Teased? Or you just handled it well?
stuff, usual discrimination.
Did they look at you like, why are you here? I'm sure you must have been like
much smaller,
like 80 pounds in high
Yeah,
school.
much smaller and
Yeah.
shorter. I remember in junior high, every time it rained and the weather was bad in gym class, we couldn't go outside.
Mhm.
We would go dancing in the school,
That was
inside a building.
Okay.
And the girls I danced with were a foot or two taller than me.
We'll get into that later, I guess. But I felt that it seems like in order for you to not feel or to adapt, you had to be secure.
Oh yeah.
You had to learn to kind of
know
roll
yourself. You got a confidence
with it.
in
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah.
Okay. And
I mean, I did okay with classwork and all that, but you still get that racial
Mhm.
discrimination.
Were there any other Chinese people at your high school?
Not many. Maybe half a dozen or so.
And were they bigger than you, or were they your friends, or didn't matter?
Some of them were native born, see.
I see.
Some of the Chinese were born here.
Uh-huh.
So they would be their normal age.
Uh-huh.
When I was 13 or so, I graduated when I was 15.
From high school?
The other Chinese children, were already 18 or 19. That's their normal graduation age.
Just a side note. That's when you met Wabong, right? At Americanization School?
Yeah.
And you did a little better than he did academically, huh?
Right.
Uh-huh.
He was assigned to the 7th grade,
Yeah.
and I was assigned to the 9th grade.
Well,
That's, it's just a difference.
well, you do have a good brain. All right. So you
I
came.
can't take credit for that.
You were born with good genetics.
Right. Exactly.
So at the same
my
time,
mother, she lived to be 99 years old, so we had longevity on our side too.
Okay. Just real quickly, tell me about your parents. You came to America. I think you said that they owned something called the Mandarin.
Mandarin restaurant.
Yeah. How was
Yeah,
that?
my father, back in those days, they were usually up in New York when they worked in the restaurant to get started. But then after he had learned English and then learned a little more about his business, running a restaurant, he felt he could get better opportunities getting away from New York City because there's so many other Chinese restaurants there. So he went south to look for business opportunities, and he had 2 or 3 other cousins with him. Some of them stopped here on the way down in Washington and got settled. Others went further down south to Richmond. So we had cousins in Richmond that also got into the restaurant business.
So was that restaurant somewhat successful?
Yeah. He has to be to support the family.
Just a side note, I heard from you before that you knew Conrad Hilton, which is the founder of the Hilton Hotel.
Not Hilton, Marriott.
Oh, my mistake. What's his name?
What's his first name?
But you said he used to patronize your restaurant for noodles.
I think she got the wrong name.
Okay.
It's Marriott at that time. They had a restaurant business called the Hot Shops.
Okay.
That's before he got into the hotel business. See, his son's the one who started the Marriott hotel chain. He and his wife Alice and this senior Marriott opened a chain of restaurants called Hot Shops in D.C. He always insisted on the quality in his food. So he would never buy anything already cooked or done by other people. So he would buy Chinese stuff from us, the ingredients like the bean sprouts, the fried noodles. We would sell him that, and he would go ahead and make his own chow mein, chop suey, and all that other stuff.
Okay. Just a side note, I thought that was interesting. You knew your family knew the, founders of Marriott.
Not Conrad, no.
Okay.
It's the Marriott.
I see.
Yeah.
And when you came to America, was your family religious, or you just went on your own for learning English, or how did that work?
Well, besides learning English in high school and public school, I went to church to learn English mainly, because that's how my father got started in New York. He when he came from China, he didn't know any English. So what little English he learned, he went to a church, a Chinese church. At that time, that's what the Chinese church did. They took care of the immigrants. Besides teaching them the Bible, they learned English at the same time. Like when I came to our church, the Chinese Community Church in D.C., Reverend Hong had just started that church in 1935. He was a minister in Detroit. And in Washington, around that period, the American churches really had a strong fervor for missionary work. So later on, some of those local churches like First Presbyterian, First Baptist, the other churches said, well, we have Chinese in Washington. Why do we spend money to China to do missionary work? We can use that money and work with the Chinese here in the district through the Chinese churches. So that's when they got our church started. Our church was a mission church in the beginning.
Right, at Mount Vernon.
At Mount Vernon, yeah.
And
because it was large enough building to accommodate more people.
So I assume that had a big influence on you, not just learning English, but morally and spiritually as well.
Exactly.
And was that just your whole family, or just you felt that?
Well, I was on here by myself. My brother went through the whole thing 10 years earlier.
So you were the only religious person really in your family?
Yeah, but the others were not anti-religion. They were lukewarm, more than. You see the picture of the Chinese lady, American lady?
That's your Sunday school teacher.
My Sunday school, right. She was a member of the First Presbyterian Church, or the National Presbyterian Church.
Rebecca
Drysdale.
What grade were you when was she your first Sunday school teacher?
Yes. At that time, our church didn't have the staff
Mm-hmm.
to teach English or Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So all these teachers came from outside.
Mm-hmm.
Not only Ms. Wright there, but there may be 10, 15 other American ladies or men who came and taught us. They would go. That's why our church was held in the afternoon those days.
After service.
After
Yeah.
around 2 o'clock, where after those ladies and men had finished their church at noon, then they came to our church at 1, 2 o'clock.
What did she take a liking to you, or did
Well,
you guys?
we was mutual. You know,
Uh-huh.
she was she wanted to help us and teach us and get us, into the Bible and study that and get to join the church.
How old were you when she was your Sunday school teacher?
Well, I was 10. No, let's see. I went to Americanization school in the first 2 years. I think so. I was around 12, 13, somewhere along there.
Did you ever tell her you named your daughter after her?
Oh, of course,
So
of course.
you all stayed in touch for a long time.
Oh, yeah. See, like I said, those so-called missionary people
Mm-hmm.
came to our church.
Mm-hmm.
They not only taught us the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
but also helped us during the week to learn American customs and
Mm-hmm.
habits and other social etiquette and stuff like that. So every Christmas they would invite us to their house for Christmas dinner, Easter.
When you said they invite you, like your whole family or just you, or
Well, at that time it was only me.
oh, you were like
Yeah.
alone. Is that what you're saying? Like your brother's too old, your dad's working, so when you went over, you
Yeah,
kind
they
of
were, my brother was 10, 12 years
you're very
older.
independent at that young age.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, we had separate lives almost, although we lived in the same house.
I see.
And they were not much interested in religion.
Who miss
My
your family? Your
father or
family.
my
Okay.
brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's just they had same exposure I had later, but it didn't earn like fertile soil. It didn't get root in their case.
So you grew up in church, and you were, I'm assuming, close
Every
to many
year,
people.
From then on,
Yeah.
I was a regular church member
Uh-huh.
of the Chinese community in D.C., except for 7 years when I had finished college.
You went to Roanoke.
I went to
right.
Virginia
Oh.
to work because
Uh-huh.
my project was I'm a civil engineer. I went through University of Maryland College, Civil Engineering College, and my job took an exam for civil service, and I was qualified for P1 civil service engineering grade. Back in those days, if you're a college graduate, you get a professional grade. If you didn't finish college, you get a sub-professional SP. So like you do clerical work, you get a SP 1, 2, or 3. But when we college graduates and were qualified with a P1, we start off several years higher grade than the sub-professional.
So you were very lucky because, let me just take a guess. You were too young for World War II, and you're too old for Korean War. So you're right in the middle.
Right.
You're so lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 17 when the war was over.
Yeah.
In fact, I was, we were registered for the draft, and I was A1. I was ready to go.
You could have had the benefits of being a veteran with no war, with no combat,
Right. Exactly.
and free education.
I was real lucky.
Okay, so you went to University of Maryland, and how old were you? How old were you when you started?
15.
And am I correct? Just a side note, did you start the Chinese club in University of Maryland, or
Yeah.
how long?
After the freshman year, I didn't do anything. But the second, third year, I was real active.
You started a Chinese club, and how was that? Was there
We
a
had
few
about
people?
20 members at that time.
I think that's still around.
Well, yeah, they got about 200-300 now.
Yeah. So you went to University of Maryland and you studied civil engineering.
Right.
And how did you do in school?
Average. I didn't get a top grade.
You didn't,
Yeah.
was math easy for you?
Huh?
Was math easy for you?
Well, yeah, it wasn't easy. You had to work at it.
Okay.
Like calculus,
Uh-huh.
quantitative problem. That's pretty tough.
I'm sure it's harder back then because you didn't have calculators. Is that true?
Oh no, no.
You never had a
No
calculator.
never had a calculator.
I don't even know what that means. How can
No.
you do calculus without a
Well,
calculator?
there was came much later.
I'm sure it was harder to do math. Did you said how did you do
Well,
calculations? Just everything's by hand?
No, yeah, calculator does multiplying and dividing.
You had something like that back
Yeah,
then.
something like
Okay.
that, but not the
Not the advanced stuff.
not the iPad stuff.
You also around this time, you say you started college at what age? 15?
I was
And
19 when I graduated.
and I think around this time was that when you met your wife or got interested
In high
romantically?
Well, I was 15, 16.
Yeah. How did you meet your wife?
Well, she was at the Chinese Community Church.
Right.
So at that time, nobody had cars. So all the young people all went places on a streetcar or a bus.
Huh?
And we were used to go down the Haynes Point on the 7th Street streetcar.
Yeah.
Go down to go swimming and go bicycling.
How old is she? Is she a little older than you, right?
4 years older. She was a normal age for American.
And
people.
how old were you when you dated her? Started dating?
I was about 15, 16.
It takes confidence to date a girl 4 years older than you.
Yeah.
I have trouble dating Mei. She's only 1 year.
I know what.
Yeah.
I should mention
Uh-huh.
one thing. At that time, a lot of the Chinese caught TB, tuberculosis, and she was one of those. There were 3 girls in her age that caught TB and went to Glendale Sanatorium.
That's like a quarantine place, right?
Yeah, well, they have the program trying to bring them back to health,
Mm-hmm.
and so she was there for 3 years.
So a long time.
Yeah, well, that make up the gap. See, I was 4 years younger than her, but you took away the 3 years that she was away. That put it.
Okay,
put
so
it a little
you're
bit
equal
closer.
footing. Yeah, so you started dating when you were in high school or college?
High school.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And did she go to University of Maryland too?
Yeah, but she didn't graduate because when I graduated, she was only a sophomore or something.
Okay.
So she studied home economics,
Uh-huh.
which most girls did in those days.
That was a degree, home ec, back then?
Home ec. Yeah.
For college.
Yeah.
What does that mean to get a degree in home ec? This is something a little out of date now.
Yeah, it is.
I know.
That's just the old days.
Yeah.
Learn housekeeping and
Uh-huh.
that sort of thing.
Okay. So you graduated college.
No,
You were kind of involved in church, and then you got your first job for the military. Is that correct?
it was a military organization,
Uh-huh.
but it's the Corps of Engineers.
Mm-hmm.
They are the largest employer of engineers in the world.
This probably, I'm going to take a guess because I'm assuming that after World War II they really increased the spending. Is that correct? And so they were looking for positions.
Well, around that time, back in the 30s,
Uh-huh.
they had a lot of floods in the Midwest.
Okay.
The Mississippi River, Missouri River,
Uh-huh.
and Congress authorized construction of a lot of dams and flood control projects. And they assigned it to the Army engineers because the Army engineers were responsible for the navigation and maintenance of the harbors, like Norfolk, New York. They had to keep dredging, the water in the harbor for ships to come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
So it just was natural for Congress to authorize or pick the Corps of Engineers to do the construction for this flood control projects.
And you got hired because they were
Yeah.
looking.
In July, I graduated in June '47, and I went to work in July '47. So it was just 1 month before I started working.
And you all moved, right?
The project I was assigned to by the engineers was in Norfolk.
Okay.
Was in their district office all over the world. Each district has a certain area boundary,
Mm-hmm.
and they have the Roanoke River in
Mm-hmm.
Virginia and North Carolina. So the dam I was assigned to was called Bucks Island Dam on the Roanoke River.
Is that
It-
still standing?
Oh, of course.
Sorry, sorry. You did a good job.
Better be.
Better be. Okay, sorry.
There was a concrete
Uh-huh.
dam
Yeah.
was built from solid rock.
Yeah.
We had to, when dams, they, they have more multi-purpose dams. Besides flood control, they also generate electric power.
Gotcha.
So that's why they call it a multi-purpose project.
And then after that, you came back to DC. That was like 7 years, right?
7 is finished. I came back to Washington because I wanted to be back near my family.
Right.
And and the Washington district of the Corps of Engineers has control of the construction for the military in the Washington area, like Andrews Air Force Base, Bowling Air Force Base, Walter Reed Medical Hospital,
Mm-hmm.
so on. The Air Force, U.S. Air Force, didn't have any construction agency, so the Corps of Engineers of the Army was assigned the construction responsibility for the Air Force.
Air Force was a new thing back then, right?
Right.
So they needed probably, to build
air
it up.
bases. We had to build air bases and to build hangars, hospitals.
That's what you did? You built, but
That's
okay.
what we had all kinds of projects.
Mm.
And also for the Corps, when NASA started their program later on in the 60s, 70s, they also don't have any construction capability.
Who is this?
NASA.
Oh, NASA. Sorry. Okay.
National Aeronautical Space Agency.
Mm-hmm.
Their headquarters in Greenbelt. So they had a contract with the Corps that the Corps would do their construction for them. Like we built the Canaveral launching site,
This is in Florida.
Florida.
So you were involved in all these projects.
Yeah.
And
Because I was in
uh-huh.
Washington, which was the headquarters, headquarters of Corps Engineers, we had office in the districts like Norfolk, Canaveral, West Coast, worldwide. We had officers worldwide.
And you were also in charge of dealing with the what is that thing? NORAD. What is that called?
The
North American.
On, first, it was the air defense from Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We built the Nike sites.
Okay.
That was to intercept any aircraft coming into Washington.
What does that stand for?
Nike. That's just the name of the
okay.
missile. But they are just short-range missiles. But later on, as they developed longer-range missiles, it's called ICBM.
There we go. Yeah.
ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missile. That's when we had to build this anti-ballistic missile all the way across from Greenland to Alaska. And we had, because we had the construction responsibility for that. That's part of NORAD. NORAD is the one out of Denver,
Mm-hmm.
Colorado. Because of the rocks there, they built the headquarters
Mm-hmm.
in the tunnel, in the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But we have projects like that in Greenland, starting from the East Coast all the way across, with about 12 missile sites, anti-ballistic missile sites, from Greenland to Alaska.
Yeah. So you worked for the government for a while. That was your career for about how many years did you work for? 30?
Let's see. I worked a total of 44 years before I retired. I had 27 years with the Corps, federal government. Then by that time, in the late 60s and 70s, they started the metro system.
Did you retire early? Did they give you a bonus for that for the government?
No bonus.
Uh-huh. How was your pension for the
that
government?
character there, that general, major general?
Yeah.
He was my boss in the chief's office.
Yes.
At that time, I had an offer to come to Metro,
Uh-huh.
but he wouldn't let me go.
Yeah.
He's the way the system works, well, you can retire early when you're 45
Yes.
with 20 years service,
Uh-huh.
but with the consent of the employing agency,
Okay.
so he wouldn't let me go.
What does that mean? He liked you, or was he being a jerk?
Both.
He was being a jerk.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm surprised
But
you got a picture
later
of him.
on,
Yeah.
6 months later,
Yeah.
the whole government was under forced reduction.
Okay.
That means they wanted to cut down the number of employees.
They couldn't afford you all.
Corps was under the forced reduction,
Uh-huh.
which has to operate under the civil service regulations. It says if you're qualified and you want to leave, you don't need the approval or permission from the employer. So that's what I left.
How was your pension from working from the government all those years?
Well, 20, normal retirement age is 55
Yeah.
and 20 years service or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I qualified for that. I had more than 20 years service, but I was not 55. I was 46. So for 9 years, they took all 2% a year from my pension.
Okay.
In other words, if I worked the full time, I had to be 55.
Well, that's a
before
long
I could
time.
move.
You started working when you were 19 or 20.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was 19.
So you retire from
The Corps, the federal government.
Yeah.
I had 27 years service. Then Metro started. And I started there in 1974, I guess, and worked another 17 years. So I worked a total of 44 years, 27 plus 17, 44 years.
At that time, there were metro systems around the country, just not in DC, right? There was New York, the subway
Oh,
system.
New York is old. That's the real.
Yeah. Is there any other places that had a subway system?
California, one.
Which one? Not San Francisco, LA? I don't know.
LA or something. LA, something. Yeah, they had, I don't remember what other city, but ours was new, was brand new.
Okay.
So it was Metro here was a complete new system, start from the ground up. We built with different kinds of construction, with open
Above ground?
above ground,
And below ground?
below ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then Maryland because they call Rockville because of the rock,
Is that what it
the
is?
soil, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Soil here is rocky, so here we have to bore tunnels through the rock
Yeah.
on the Maryland section of the
Uh-huh.
subway, whereas downtown it's more soil, so we open trench construction.
Silver Spring?
Silver Spring,
How was that? Is there?
it was kind of rocky,
Yeah.
but you get up to Wheaton, that's really deep rock. That's why the escalator has to go down so far.
Oh, is
The
it because the
subway-
soil's softer down there? Is that what it is?
No, you have to, in the subway, the trains,
Uh-huh.
they can't go steep,
Yeah.
go up and steep grade. So you got to maintain a flat rate,
Yeah.
a
Okay.
flat rate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when, by the time they got to Rockville, no, to Wheaton, the mountain, the high, the geology was
The elevation.
rock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So you have to go on deeper to get down to that grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wheaton Metro is
Deep.
very long. The escalator's super.
That's a real long, deep tunnel.
And Roslyn is also really. I don't know if
Yeah.
that means anything,
Yeah,
but
Rockland same way. Once I was building some of the subway stations.
Mhm.
I took a group from the church to see the subways, just for a tour.
Mhm.
So, well, we saw the judiciary station first because it was above ground, right there, near Chinatown. But the one I also took them to the one in Roslyn, where it's underground, under the river. So we took a group to Georgetown. We went down elevator to the.
This is Foggy Bottom.
Foggy Bottom.
Yeah.
Took us down to the river bottom and go under the river, and we'll walk across the river at that time.
How far is that? Like a mile?
No, not that far. It was just across the river.
Yeah.
from Rosslyn to Pokemon.
You mu- were you pretty high up in the metro in terms of the art or civil
Well, I
engineering?
was supervisor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because my background in Corps, that
Uh-huh.
already gave me a head start.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm
I
saying
didn't.
you must have had special permission for something like that.
Oh yeah. Well, they were interested in public
Oh,
relations.
okay, publicizing it.
Yeah.
That's very special.
Right. So they were glad to attract people. Attract visitors. And
So, all these years you've been working as civil engineer, is there something you're proud of? You look back and makes you
well,
happy?
I was happy. No matter what I was doing, I made it a point,
Uh-huh.
to be happy where I was, not to look back or look too far ahead.
Yeah.
Just do your job, do it well, and just let the ball bounce where it will.
So you had a very good career.
I think so.
And you retired when you're what, 65?
63.
63?
Yeah,
Okay. And
that was 1990, 91, I think.
I see. So let's go back to, that's your career. You met your wife, you
Yeah.
had a family.
Yeah.
You have two kids, Rick and Rebecca.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, they both were nice children, and they didn't give us any trouble when they grew up in church. And even now, they have real good friends. Their closest friends, grew up with them in the Chinese church.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in fact, someone like Roland Lee, not Roland. That's it. Roland's my generation.
Lindy?
Lindy Jr.
Yeah,
Lindy
yeah.
Jr.
Howard?
Howard Moy,
Uh-huh.
and they all still keep in touch.
That's good.
Bob Bong's son, Steve.
Sean?
Yeah,
Okay.
Steve Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they all scatter because of their work, and they'll retire now. So
Mm-hmm.
when they do get together, they go to Wang Ji for lunch or something.
Mm-hmm. Any memories stick out raising a family, your wife, your kids, growing up?
No, I say we're
was
lucky.
pretty stable.
We're good children.
Mm-hmm.
And we stay close to them and try to, be a good influence on them. And I think the church has something to do with that too. The atmosphere of people of similar interests.
Now, when your son, I know your daughter majored in horticulture,
Yeah,
and your son majored in architect.
right.
Do you think that made you excited because there was a little bit of overlap between civil engineering and architecture, or that didn't matter to you?
I left it up to them. They made the choice.
Uh huh.
I didn't try to influence one way or the other.
Okay.
I feel they have to make their own lives.
Well, I'm sure maybe he inherited his math skills from you. His
Well,
drawings.
architecture is not that much math.
Uh huh.
But he did very well. He worked for a private architectural company,
Mm-hmm.
HOK. HOK stands for Helmut Opal Kasabal.
Okay.
The three partners. They designed projects all over the world.
Mm.
Saudi Arabia,
Wow.
Kuwait, Taiwan. They designed the convention center in Taiwan.
Well, that's big.
Taipei, yeah. Well, they are in that international company, and he did very well with the company. He got promoted along the way, and before he retired, he was one of the 4 senior principals of the company, of their office here.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a senior group.
Sounds like he did pretty well.
Pretty well in his work.
Yeah. So
And that's how he met his wife,
Mary Love.
Mary Love.
Yeah.
She's an Irish girl,
Uh-huh.
and she was the art major from college. She graduated from Smith College in Boston, Massachusetts, and she worked for the same company, HOK, doing the illustrations, brochures and stuff. And that's how they met.
So I know, let's go back. I just wanted to touch your career, your family. I want to ask you, about your spiritual heritage and your kind of how you grew as a Christian. And I remember you telling me that you must have been a big part of the church because you told me that um, Reverend Hung's wife, what's her name? I don't know.
Florence.
Florence.
Home. Yeah.
I guess there was. I guess that was a popular name back then. Um, that they wanted you to be a seminarian.
She did.
And tell me why. What was that about? That's kind of interesting.
Well, you know, I was active in the Sunday school programs,
Uh-huh.
and I guess she took a liking to me, and she wanted me to go into ministry, but I just couldn't see it because being Chinese and being more
You need math and numbers. Something
Yeah,
more pragmatic, huh?
I couldn't see
Yeah.
getting married and start a family and
Uh-huh.
do both. There aren't that many churches to be ministers of.
It's a tough career move.
The top is a top choice.
So
That's why I tell Reverend Cho.
yeah.
I really admire him.
Uh-huh.
That he made up his mind he wanted to be a minister.
So over the years, in my opinion, I would consider you like a lay pastor, even though you weren't, you didn't have the divinities.
Ministry, no.
You in many ways have the role of a pastor without the title. Because so why don't you tell me a little bit about all the different things you've done at the church? Because that's kind of very interesting to me, as that's how we kind of know each other.
I was in the church all the time.
Yeah.
So I grew up in the hierarchy.
Mm-hmm.
I was a Sunday school teacher. I sang in the choir. I was on board of managers.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, in the beginning, it was board of managers. One were still managed by these American churches.
Yeah.
But because our church, grew from a little small missionary church to a much larger, much larger membership, say in the 60s, then we started, my generation, we started, I guess I was probably the first generation that really matured enough to be self-governing.
Right.
So all my peers were
Involved in the church.
Involved in management in the church. And I was on the board, and I was assigned at that time to write a constitution for the church.
Right. And we still use that today, and it's what's it called? Robert's Rules or something?
Well, that's just one of the rules.
Yeah.
But we wrote our own constitution. And I was chairman of the committee that wrote the Constitution.
Who was the secretary?
Your grandmother.
I want to talk about my grandmother later, but
anyway, she was very good, very.
She's probably very organized.
Thorough, very
She's
thorough.
very good at her job. I'm sure.
I would do the research. I would look at different constitutions from different churches, and pick their brains to see what worked for them. Then I came up with a draft that I presented to my committee, which had a lawyer, an accountant, myself. We had a lawyer with Ernest Hom. He was active in our church at that time. Ernie Hom. He was a solicitor with the Department of Interior. So I picked all these different constitutions and pieced them together for a draft. Then I gave it to each one to look at, see what they could we'll brainstorm and pick what we want and throw what we want away. And that's the Constitution that we have now.
How many hours did that require for you to do? Was that a big project?
It was a big project, yeah. Because to come up with a draft, I still have it. You have to review all the different.
Oh, you're like Benjamin Franklin or Thomas Jefferson. You wrote the Constitution.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, like Jefferson says,
yeah,
he wants to be remembered as the founder of the University of Virginia.
Okay.
Well, I would like to be remembered as the drafter of the church constitution that made us independent,
good,
self-governing. That was a big move in 71, 72, somewhere along there.
that must be something that you're very proud of.
Yes, yes,
And,
I am.
and my grandmother can
She
can
did
be
her
proud of that her as
her
well.
part too. Yeah, we all
Um,
did our part.
so all the different roles you've done at the church, other than the church constitution, anything that stand out to you, or
Well, I sang in the choir for many, many years,
yeah,
and I was the soloist for the bass section. So I
you have a deeper voice.
a lot of bass. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of experience in singing.
Yes.
I was in the choir of 30, 40 years.
Richard Lee.
He was a director.
That was the first chair of the board,
He was chairman of the board.
and you were the second.
Yes, I think so.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a real strong character.
Did he scare people? Now
He
I don't.
did. He did.
Did he? I don't know much about Richard.
You know, he's a real
Tough guy.
tough guy.
I don't want to be.
He don't want me. He don't take it left. Don't want to take any nonsense.
Does that mean he's very successful in his career
Yeah.
too? Because he's very strong-willed.
Yeah, he was. He was.
Uh-huh.
He was executive office with the Department of Department of Commerce.
Any stories that you can remember out of all the years you've served? Something that makes you laugh or breaks your heart? Anything interesting to you that you wanted to share?
Well, I think it's satisfying to see the church grow.
Uh-huh.
And I served my years. Now I can't do much now except just
You're a little old.
like a senior citizen now.
Yes.
So I look back and say, gee, I'm glad to see that the church has continued to evolve and grow. And each generation, you know, has its own way of doing things.
Now, one of the things I did want to ask you about, because I find that it's not easy getting older, and I don't.
You mean health-wise?
How everything, and I think based on what you shared, one of the reasons you're able to handle things is because you're independent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's based on what you're saying. At such a young age, you kind of learn to.
You don't try to look too far ahead and too far behind.
And I remember I asked you, and I think this happens a lot. How do you deal with conflict? And this is what you told me. You said, "This is what you said." You said, "I like who I am, and not going to change it for anybody else." Is that correct?
Basically, I am what I am. I mean, take it as it is.
Take me as I am. Uh-huh.
Right. I'm not going to change just because somebody says I should change. Unless I find, if I agree with them, of course I would change.
So I think in some ways that's probably helped you to not be too sensitive when there's conflicts. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so.
And
to thyself be true, you know. That's what Shakespeare said.
because I know, like, even for me, and I'm much, less experienced than you and less than half your age, it's easy for people to be discouraged in ministry or working with people because you may disagree.
You can't have a thin skin when you're in the ministry.
And you take it personally.
Yeah.
How have you seen that happen?
I don't take it personal.
Yeah, but a lot of people do.
Yeah, I know.
What would you say to that?
That's their personality.
Yeah.
My personality is that you gotta be happy in your skin.
Was that natural, or did you have to grow into this perspective?
I'm sure that's part of the growing process. Yeah. Part of it is genetic, but part of it is also self.
Because I find it like my reflection of people who've been in the church, and they kind of become jaded over the years because they feel unacknowledged or unappreciated or resentful. And you tell me,
I don't feel that way.
Yeah, how did you?
I feel like I'm just doing my job. I'm not supernatural. I mean, I'm not Superman, and I'm just gonna do the best I can.
Yeah.
And let it fall where it will.
But over the years, I've heard from other people, you can get angry every so often. Tell me about
really,
that. Not super angry, but you have no problem being assertive.
No.
Right?
No, when it's, you got to draw a line somewhere.
Yeah, okay.
If they start getting personal, that's when you have to stop.
Being in the church for so many years, Do you feel like do you have any special relationships with any pastors stand out to you? Or you
No, I think each one is individual. They have their own ability and shortcomings,
so
but
you get along with all of
nobody's
them?
perfect.
There's no one that's more sentimental to you, Reverend Hung or Charles
No,
or anybody?
no,
Juan?
no. I feel like they're just doing their job
Uh-huh.
the best they can,
Hmm.
and that's all you can ask.
So it sounds like to me you're really good at just kind of focusing on what you can control
Right,
and
right,
not worrying too much about other people.
exactly. Yeah,
And it's okay to disagree.
right. Disagree, but not be disagreeable.
Yeah, yeah. Not be contentious, right?
Right, right.
Um,
You gotta recognize they come from
mhm.
different background, they have different ideas, and you just have to,
I remember.
accept it.
Let me share a funny story. I remember if I could go back in time, I would change the way I dressed just to make my grandma happy. And I remember I would pick you up for church and ride with
Right.
grandma, and every so often grandma would get on me, Garrett, why don't you wear some pants? And I remember you said to my grandmother, Jenny, it doesn't. It's okay, Jenny. It's it's your heart is the most
The
important
person,
thing,
yeah,
not how you not your outward appearance.
exactly.
And I remember you're very open minded about these things, where while your generation usually is not. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I think you have to be open minded
Mm-hmm.
and recognize that each generation has
Mm-hmm.
different modes and different habits, and as long as the inner person,
Mm-hmm.
is has good intentions.
Well, I do regret not wearing pants just to make my grandmother happy, but I mean, it is very
To me,
special.
that's not. I would prefer you to wear pants, but I wouldn't make that a big deal.
You know what the problem is? Every time after church, I always do something active, and you know
Yeah,
my personality. It's hard for me to. It's very. Um,
convenient.
I feel claustrophobic when I wear nice clothes. It doesn't suit me well, but
Yeah. Well, like I
so
say, you're happy. I mean,
I'm happy.
that's important.
One day I'll have to pretend I'm an adult. So let's move on because I think this is also another very special thing in your life. Tell me about. I think you were maybe 78 when or 77 when you were diagnosed with cancer,
Oh yeah.
and that was a very special situation. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I felt, you got to be aware of your body. And I felt there were some glands were kind of swollen in
Mm-hmm.
my neck and arm. So I had a checkup, and and they found that I had, the lymphoma.
What stage was it? I thought it was pretty advanced. Was that correct?
Yeah, it was. I think they said it was stage 4 or something.
And what is the chance for survival at that time? I thought it must have been very low.
Yeah, I would guess so.
And I remember I
But
went to visit you.
I talked to my doctor,
Yeah,
my
huh?
internist. He said, go see a specialist at Georgetown,
Mhm.
where they have a more advanced research in cancer.
Yes.
So I took his advice and went to Lombardi Cancer Center in Georgetown University, and they, of course, run through a usual test,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's when they said I had stage 4 and all that lymphoma.
How did your wife so walk me through the time when do you remember the day, the moment you were diagnosed? I'm sure that must have been like forever ingrained.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you the date or time.
No, I mean, but the moment, like,
Yeah.
were you there with your wife
Uh,
or by yourself?
I'm trying to think. She wouldn't be there. No, I would go to get my exam. She was taking me to the exam, but she wouldn't know. I wouldn't know first. and then they would tell her about it. Yes.
So how did you handle it, and then how did she handle it upon receiving
Yeah,
that bad
well,
news?
there's life. You know that your body is not you're subject to all kinds of disease and illness. So I wasn't particularly concerned about it. I felt comfortable with myself. If I survive, well, good. But
You
if
know,
I don't, that's the way it goes.
my experience with Chinese people is they don't take bad news very
Yeah.
well. I'll give you an example of my father. I don't know if you know this, but he wasn't feeling well for a while, and so he went to the ER, and then they did a biopsy on him, and then he goes, okay, I can. People have cancer. It's not the end
Yeah.
of the world. And then
What did he die of?
lung cancer.
Lung.
And so he met with the doctor, the specialist,
Mm-hmm.
and she told him, "You have 6 months to live."
Oh.
And at that time, my father was most of his life he was very healthy, and he valued longevity because our family, his uncle died when he was 101. His
Oh.
dad died when his was like 96. My grandma died when she's 95. So, and also my dad loved the Chinese god Sil Sin Gong, the god of longevity.
Oh.
And so when he found out his diagnosis, he was so distraught. He said that his blood pressure must have went through the roof because his blood was gushing out of his nose.
Oh, really?
He was so unhappy
Mm.
because he was thinking 6 months, only 6 months. So I think a lot of Chinese people, they're very afraid of death and bad news. They don't know how to take it.
I think that's because he didn't have the church background.
Yeah, so I'm wondering for you, I think that's pretty special.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's where the church, religion kicks in.
Yeah.
And in my case, I accept it. Whatever I get, I accept it. I didn't try to fight it or do anything, except I do what the doctor says. I went through the chemotherapy and up to that point, I didn't even know I was sick because I was feeling good, except for the swollen glands. I didn't have any pains or anything, so I was really surprised that I was sick. So, but once I went through 4 series of chemo treatments, and they always give you the strongest.
They want to knock it out.
Knock it out.
Yeah.
To begin the first one,
Mm-hmm.
and they put it in the hospital first to see how you react to it. So when I took my first one, you're supposed to spend the first night at the hospital. I was one of the few times, I guess, only time I was at the hospital.
Overnight. Uh-huh.
Overnight.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any trouble. After I got my infusion, I walk around the ward, and the nurse, the doctor were amazed. They said they usually knock you out, you stay in bed, you can't move.
Wow.
I was walking around the ward with the thing hanging there.
Yeah. The medicine.
Yeah.
IVs. Uh-huh.
But the same thing happened to other members of the church. I remember exactly. Ida Lee, she had the same
Treatment. Right?
treatment, but she couldn't accept the heavy, strong
Chemotherapy. Okay.
chemo, and that had to cut down the dosage. So that's the difference.
You didn't even feel adverse that much.
No, I just took it and didn't have any problem with it. So I went through my 4 or 5 series
Yeah.
all the way through.
They thought you were like a miracle. Is that what they were saying?
They didn't say that, but I guess it felt that way to them, to some of them.
Yeah.
And people like Ida,
Uh-huh.
they had to cut it theirs way down because they couldn't tolerate it. And she died from it. The same thing I had, and we both had it about the same time. Now, I did have a reaction, my stomach had problem. I get nauseated and stuff like that. But still, I could tolerate.
How bad did you feel compared to now? Did you feel as weak as you did now, or did you feel worse, like more tired than you do at this age? Because I remember I visited you with my grandpa Phil, and you seemed like you were just a little bit under the weather.
When was that?
Two, around that time,
Oh,
2004,
oh,
I saw you in your room.
oh,
I walked over here. It was a long walk from where my grandparents lived, which was Forest Crossing. It took about 15, 20 minutes. But you seem to be managing.
yeah, I was. I the only problem I had was my stomach. I feel very nauseated,
Hmm.
and some Chinese friends tell me Greek some beef broth,
Oh, yeah,
beef,
yeah.
beef and ginger,
It's good for you.
good for you.
Yeah.
So I drained the broth, and that helped.
My mother-in-law is always making me broths to help me impregnate my wife. They Chinese people believe in that stuff.
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes
They
it
do.
works, sometimes it doesn't.
Did you have a lot of visitors at that time, or were you very? Did you
No,
feel like alone, or you just were
no,
fine?
I lived pretty much normal life.
Okay. And when you got the diagnosis that it went to remission, how did you celebrate? Were you
Oh, I
were
was
you
real happy
did
about
you
it.
get on your knees and thank God? I mean,
Oh yeah, well,
yeah.
all the way through you thank God
Hmm.
for whatever you get, you know, whether it's good or bad, you thank God for
I'm
it.
sure your wife was very happy.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about my grandmother, because that's just for me personally.
Well, to me, she was always a hard worker. No matter what she did it well. She was real conscientious,
Oh yeah,
and
very aware.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I liked her, and I admire her for what she had to do. You know, her husband leaving her at an early age, and she had to raise the two kids
Did
by.
anybody not like her? She seemed like she was so
No,
pleasant.
no, she was very much like, and Reverend Hung, of course, uh, she was a big help to Reverend Hung with the church stuff.
I imagine my grandmother being like Linda, except
Yeah,
except
right.
more people skills, like more social. Am I correct?
Well,
Much more ingratiating, hospitable,
yeah.
warm.
Yeah, everybody has their
Uh huh.
strong and weaker,
Uh huh.
traits.
Mm-hmm.
But our goal was always the same: not to make ourselves feel good, but
Mm-hmm.
to do a job that do it well and help others and help the church.
Just to be selfish. Um, anything, Grandma. How did Grandma feel about me? Because I kind of didn't
Well,
really think.
she was very fond of you, and she always, always, glad to see you when you come. She was real happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, I think you were happy. You made her happy. You made her life more complete. She was so glad you could come have dinner with her and from time to time.
I came at least once a week.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
so
was good.
that was that was good for her too.
Yeah.
And I was glad when she got married to Phil
Yeah.
because it was a lonely life.
She's a beautiful woman. She deserves somebody.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Um,
And I still got her pictures in the wedding
oh, yeah.
and he was see at that time my wife was in charge of the reception committee
Yeah.
and she took care of all the wedding reception.
I'm sure you're happy when she got married. I'm sure people were trying to hook her up, right? At times. Trying to look out for her.
Yeah, well,
You know, my dad, everyone liked Phil. My dad loved him.
of course, your grandma was a few years older than me, so
Yeah.
we would never.
I think she's got to be, let's see, she would be like 103, I think. You know, maybe like 7 years older than you.
Yeah, because she was already married and
Yeah.
divorced, and I was just
She's born
starting to grow up.
1921, I think.
Uh-huh.
So you're like 27.
Yeah,
Um,
December 27th.
mm. Well, now you're older, Toe, and you know, it's, you know, you see a little bit your friends getting older, some of them passing away. I
Yeah.
know I was um, like good friends with Wabong.
Yeah.
John passed away, your friend.
Yeah.
Um,
They were real good friends of mine.
how are you, as an older person, able to age as gracefully as you have? Because I know it can be very hard to see your, you know, your
No,
friends.
I accept that. That's part of life.
Yeah.
I don't expect to live forever,
Mm-hmm.
and I always say, when God's ready for me, I'll be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's tomorrow or next year, makes no difference.
Yeah.
So my daily prayer is that give me each day for me strong enough I can do my work and help others, and that God's God's will be done.
I find a lot of people who I talk to, they get sad because they dwell on the past
Yeah.
and they think about how their life used to be
No. No.
and the people they missed, or they feel that maybe they should be treated better now because they wish their family would be closer.
No.
None of that applies to you. Do you
No.
know how? I mean, do you know how special that is? I mean, I'm sure you realize that.
No. Like I say, I accept people the way they are.
Yeah,
Some of them have. Nobody's perfect. I certainly am not perfect.
yeah,
So who am I to criticize somebody for being the way they are? They all come from different backgrounds, different circumstances. So you have to sympathize with them and and accept them.
a question for myself. You know, I remember visiting my grandmother when she was in Arbor Ridge, which is basically towards the end of her life.
Yeah.
I remember a few times I come visit and I drop my grandmother off, and there you were sitting by the elevator waiting for her. And I'm like, that requires a lot of energy. At that age, you're probably about 89.
Mm-hmm.
And I assume your whole life you've almost been like a lay pastor, you know, caring for people, checking up on people. Certainly, me as a Christian, I aspire to have that longevity and the same heart. My question, I'm just curious, like, how do you, is that natural for you or you have to work at it? Or it's just, how
Well,
are you able to do that?
it's a gradual process. I didn't something you acquire overnight.
Mm-hmm. Is this how you felt God wants you to be, like your
Yeah.
identity as a Christian?
I know my weakness, and
Yeah.
I pray every night for God's guidance.
Yeah. Were you always this way? You were always like a shepherd
Yeah.
in some ways, or you had to
More or
grow
less,
to that?
more or less. I haven't changed. I don't think that much. You change with age, or you slow down. You don't do as much as you used to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think basically I'm in a different now than I were 20, 30 years ago. So I'm active at a Chinese club here, because I feel a lot of them need help.
So you've always had this shepherd heart.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's something that we want to help people when they come to Riderwood to get adjusted.
You know what? This is something I've noticed about you. I find myself kind of emulating. And I remember when I was thinking about being a teacher, I was about 22, 23. You had your godson, Chris Lem, call me.
Oh.
And you said, Chris calls me and says, my godfather Toe wants me to call you. I'm not really sure why, but he just wants me to talk to you about being a teacher. And one thing I realized, if you want to encourage people, it's really good to connect them with other people. And I noticed a lot of great people are very good at connecting people you care about to other people.
Right.
You've done this a lot, huh?
That's what I try to do. I know I can't do everything myself.
Yes.
So I try to get other people who could help you to kind of step in.
You've always been that. Have you always been this way, like good at networking?
I guess so.
By the way, I don't know if you know this, but you know what Roy says, who's our beloved member.
Yeah.
He says he gives credit to you. He says that he wouldn't be at the church if you didn't befriend him early on. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh yes, I remember.
He said that you were his friend and you kind of try to introduce him to other people,
Right.
and that was one of the things that stood out to him.
Yeah, I think I feel I can't do everything myself, but if I network and give them some other people who could help,
Uh-huh.
that would make things work out better.
I don't know if this is natural, but I think those are good leadership skills that are required in either work, in the church,
Yeah,
that I am trying to
yeah,
acquire for myself.
right.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I say. Life is a learning process.
yeah.
No matter how old or young, you try to pick up things along the way
Mhm.
that would improve things.
Mhm.
Help other people, which in turn make yourself feel better.
Any words to someone like me who I'm sure you're proud of the church, Chinese Community Church. You've served there since 1937. What year? I mean, how many? What year did you go to church?
37.
And you want to see it do well. So, any advice to someone like me who is younger and to the younger generation you want them to know, or words of encouragement?
Well, it's hard to just say it in a few words, but
Yeah, take your time, however you
Yeah.
want to express it.
I think the Bible tells you, ultimately how you should react to people, and it it has a lot of wisdom in the scriptures, and always be open-minded to be receptive to other people's ideas and viewpoints. Then don't act like you know it all. No matter how old you are, you can always pick up something.
Be humble, I guess.
Yeah, from somebody else background, from what they have learned in their lifetime.
Anything you want to share, say to your children or your grandchildren if they listen to this?
No, you're not going to be able to change them overnight.
Uh-huh.
It's something slow
Or how you-
process that takes years and years to do. Hopefully that some of my habits that rub off on them, and I think it has. They're pretty helpful with other people.
Anything you want to be remembered for now that you're getting a little older?
No, I always say do the best you can, and no matter what the end result is, you accept that as your reward.
Well, I just say for myself, it's good meeting a lot of great people. Um, my grandparents, Ken, you at Riderwood, and it was good, driving you to church. I get a chance to,
Yeah,
spend a little time.
I appreciate that too. I always say you can learn from somebody,
Yeah.
and life is never going to be just on up and up. Sometimes it'll be down, but always have faith in God that He will see you through.
Yeah. So I guess I'll end it on that, but it was been really good. The times I got a chance to drive you around and chauffeur you for the last few years of your life.
Right.
Unfortunately, you're getting too old now
Yeah.
that you don't go out to as many functions, but
Right.
it was an honor to take you and grandma to church and kind of all the way up to COVID, still be your driver.
Right. That really changed things.
And it's been a blessing.
Right. It's
So,
a blessing for
yeah.
me too to see you grow and see how you're helping the other young people at church. That's gratifying. Just never live for yourself. Try to always live for someone else. Help them improve.
Yeah. Well, okay, Toe.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. We'll end.
Thank you, Jared. I appreciate all you've done.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We'll end the interview here.